Q. Can you guys hear me okay? Yay? All right. So my name is Bill Heiser. I am kind of head up the AWS services at Soliant Consulting. You're here today specifically for the Soliant.cloud offering of a product we called is our FileMaker offering. Now I guess it would be called the Claris offering now, is that right? So I'm going to try and get through just 3 things today. Honestly, I thought we had a little bit longer time to go through some stuff today, but we're a little bit short. So I'm going to condense some stuff, and I'm going to condense it down to the things that are important. This isn't important. I've been doing this for a long time. I've worked in a lot of different network environments. I worked for Dow Chemical for a number of years. I worked for FileMaker as an engineer for 15 years. I've been at Soliant now for about 5, and I have a little bit of a unique background because I have a lot of networking background and some IT stuff, but anyway, if you want to read that later, the slides will be available. I'm going to go through the 3 things that matter for us today. Why in the world do we do this? There are many hosting options that are out there. There are some, obviously you made some discovery with the new FileMaker or the Claris AWS for FileMaker offering, and what's difference there. What is the primary scope of what we're trying to achieve with our product line and what we've done there, and then really what goes beyond that. So I'm going to boil this down for you to a very couple of little things. We focus on AWS as a practice in our organization. We do a lot of things. That includes things with other databases and RDBMS and AppStream, and I could go on and on. There are literally 1,700 or so different services in AWS. We also have a FileMaker practice, and we also have an OSS or a web practice. All of them use the services that we use to build things within our AWS practice. This product is centrally built around the idea of providing the best configuration, the best environment, the best networking, the best structure to support the things that work in a FileMaker hosting environment, as well as take advantage of all of the other services that are out there. So fundamentally, just some small background here. There are other hosting environments out there. There are other cloud infrastructures out there. There's a number of them listed on here. We went with AWS a number of years ago. We've put all our focus and energy into that. This just sort of shows where they sit in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. They are far to the left. They're a little even further. They are the leader in that aspect, and that's why we chose that platform. We're in every region across the world. They're releasing FileMaker Cloud in a few different regions. As time goes by, we're available in all regions right now, in all availability zones, and all redundancies, in all languages. So if we need to be there, we're there. So I'm going to break this down so it's relatively simple. FileMaker Cloud and most hosting services are effectively a SaaS model, specifically FileMaker Cloud. You're talking about connecting to a service in the cloud. They manage everything behind it, all the infrastructure behind it, all of the way that you can connect, all of the services you'd like to take advantage of. Our cloud product is designed to take all of the full features of FileMaker Server and make them available to you. So things like full plugin support. We can load any plugins that will work on Windows. They may need to operate with the operating system. They may need to interact with server-side schedules that interact with that. We provide an SSL for the environment free of charge. We provide you with the DNS as part of that environment. So we get all, and the top, in your top left here, we're available in all those regions. We're available with all these custom VPCs architectures, and we have all this elasticity. But what does that mean? When you move to the cloud, you get this virtualized environment. So we pick that up just by the nature of that. So if we need to change to different tiers to give you a higher processor, we can. We don't have to guess that you need a 2-processor 8 gig machine today and an 8-processor 64 gig machine tomorrow. It is literally just an elastic environment. We flip a switch, we try that one out. If it works great, we stay with it. If it doesn't, we can flip it back. By providing these sort of fill-in things to say, okay, if you're going to have a FileMaker in this environment, what kind of support do we have? You literally have every product feature that's available in the product, so there's no shortcomings there. And on top of that, we build some things to circumvent and help out where we feel we've had trouble over the years in supporting in an enterprise class environment. So we do some things with, I'm going to come back to snapbacks, but the advanced monitoring. We monitor the service itself the instance within the environment, and we do it through a number of ways. Sometimes we'll run command files, sometimes we'll interact with CloudWatch monitoring, sometimes we'll write special utilities. We had a client who came to us about a year and a half ago that was wanted to keep their web publishing engine from not running anymore. And through architectural changes, we wrote some Lambda functions within AWS that monitor that and then make sure that that service stays up and running. If it finds that there's trouble with it, it reaches into the instance and restarts it. It's just one example of a lot of different things that you can do when you own the whole platform. That's the key here, is to understand that we have all of the moving parts of AWS to support us in either extending the functionality of AWS and other services to you, as well as the environment to support just the FileMaker functions. We do automated patching and updating. So for example, when an instance comes into the environment, it's gone through about a 300-step process to vet that image, meaning I look at it, our engineering team looks at it and decides the servers that go in there. When a server is built in your environment, it's not just a copy of Windows and take the default installations. We go through and based on years and years of best practices, the best I can say, we decide what services are on. That image goes into the environment. It then gets a whole set of tools built into it. The details are interesting, but time precludes us from going into all of the details. But keep in mind there are CLIs that run, there are SMS agents that run. These allow us to interact with the instance in real time to detect anomalies, to detect when a patch is required, when a software patch is required. How many of you upgraded to 18.0 V2 recently? Yeah? How was that Java update for you? How'd that go? So that allows us to circumvent that stuff. Before we release an image into the environment, we can patch it, we can test it, we can run through the installations, we understand what it means to what versions will work with what. That last particular one required us to take a little bit of time and take a look at Corretto, which is an open source version of the JDK. We said, well, our options are the Oracle version, an open SDK version, or that one. We ran some serious testing on that and decided we're going to run with that one for a little while. And we build it into the installer, so now we can control the versions and updates. We do this to keep costs down for us. We operate Soliant.cloud at basically a zero net line, and I'll run you through that. But these automates a patching is to keep the thing reliable, keep it in our builds that we approve for it, as well as interact with all of the updating that has to go on. We do pass through charges, and ultimately it's hard to describe all of the details, but imagine, if you will, we have about a couple of hundred, we'll call them foo going on. Services, instances, EBS volumes, disks, S3, all kinds of stuff going on. What we do is we use some proprietary tagging and some tools that we've developed so that we know when you have an instance within our environment, everything that you talk to, whether it be talking to S3, RDBS, outbound communication, repository of container data. We tag it and we know it's explicitly assigned to you. We get those charges from AWS as they come to us. If it's $15, you get charged $15. We do not operate Soliant.cloud to try and make additional dollars in revenue off of the hosting. We operate it at a zero sum. And I will tell you why we do that. Because over the years, we have found that if we control the infrastructure, if we control the environment which it operates in, our customers will have a better experience with their product. They won't have to go through a lot of gyrations to deal with connectivity with internal IT structures, deal with security. They've got a best practices environment to operate in. We can help our clients actually do the things that matter by putting our development team at work for them. So whether you use this for development today, if you use this for AWS consulting for today, I want you to know that that environment is as enterprise class as you can get, and you can take advantage of it for basically a zero net sum. I think we put 20 bucks on top of an instance to just make sure that we can cover keeping automated updates and stuff. But it's pass-through charging. It's very different than other models out there because they typically aren't going to go through the granularity of looking at all the little details of the minutia of this disk transfer. They go, it's going to be about $350 for this, and they charge you for that. And then they work all through that. This is very specific, so you get charged for exactly what you use, literally down to the, well, in some cases, this like 6th digit of the penny. It's really ridiculous in some cases. We are providing a way to work through for you to be able to manage your instances. We are just finishing up with our web team, our Soliant.cloud portal. We're going to release version 1 here. It's going to allow you to come online, register, manage all of the nuances of the instance. So, for example, you'll be able to get to all of your invoicing and look at those. You'll be able to look at the status of your instances. You'll be able to, in the near future, to do things like reboot it outside of the admin console. So you literally will be able to reach into your AWS environment through our proxy, reboot the thing. You'll be able to do restores and things. So you'll be able to do selective pieces. So it's really designed to be sort of the enterprise class. I was talking with Brad Freitag and the DevOps team yesterday, and we're trying to, okay, this is where we fit in the model. I think that now the new release of FileMaker Cloud is going to be, if this is our client base out here, about this much, or what I would consider the small to small, medium size of organization, that is going to be a really good fit for. They're not going to need to reach in and use a lot of these other services or have advanced networking. And he asked me, he's like, well, where do you see the break point? I said, well, I think it has to do with a little bit of a gray area, but let me give you a couple of examples so that you guys can understand where we might be a good fit and where FileMaker, or excuse me, Claris might be a good fit. I'm never gonna get over it, too many years. So here's a break point. We have a number of clients that need to connect to their FileMaker server in the cloud. It could be in any cloud, but they need to wrap their Active Directory that's managed on site within their environment. Why? Because they also have a MySQL database running that you connect to with ESS. And in addition to that, they have some web services that are only exposed on their internal network so that other utilities as well as FileMaker can do that. You cannot do that without a platform as a service, okay? You've got to have the whole thing. So there's a clear breakpoint. Other ones are just the functionality of interacting with other services in other environments, and you've got to build security models and custom rules around them. So I'm going to take the remainder of our time. I'm going to run through 3 simple little things to give you some understanding of that. And then I'm going to hang out for as long as you guys want. I have nowhere to go. I think I'm going to ride home with my wife tonight back to North Carolina. So between now and then, I'll hang out, I'll answer any questions and answer your specific stuff. But let's take a look at a couple of demos so you can kind of see what we got going on behind the scenes. Fair enough? Any questions we want to address right away? Okay. Notice I didn't give you a lot of time. All right. Let's get out of here. So I'm going to take a quick look here at snapbacks real quick. So in our portal, in our client portal, you're going to have the ability to take a look and see exactly what's going on with your particular instance and what's going on behind the scenes with what we call snapbacks. It is a combination of AWS's snapshot technology with our layered in component, proprietary if you will, to allow you to do much more granular things than you can do, and it fixes some problems. So across our global environment, I think we're sitting at about 2.7 terabytes of data, okay? About 2.7 there. There's about 7 terabytes of lots of stuff, but for FileMaker specific is about 2.7 terabytes. We back that up every single hour on the hour, and the whole process across the entire globe takes about 46 to 60 milliseconds. All right, so let's just take a look at some random client here. I'm just gonna pick somebody. Let's go, let's do one of our dev boxes. I can't read very well without my glasses. All right, so on this particular, we've got a 2-drive configuration in this case. Here is a listing of all of the snapbacks that are available to us. So every hour we take a snapback, we pause the database by reaching into it, having a little conversation with the admin API, running a little CLI to make sure everything's in the right space. We pause the database, we then take a snapshot of the volume. It happens every hour. It takes on average, well, it takes longer to issue the command than it does for the snapshot to happen. Your interruption is basically, hey, I took the mouse and I moved it from here and I put it over there and now your interruption is over. So you get a snapback in there. What we can do now is catalog that. Every hour we keep the last 24. For every day we keep the last 7. For every week keep the last 4, and for every month we keep the last 3. Right? 3 or 4. Keep the last 3. That can be modified to be any way. You want to run 20 minutes? You want to run, half hour? We think an hour is a pretty good window to keep us from. But the point being is, how do you now restore that? What happens when things happen? Well, I like to pause for just a second and just say, well, this methodology we use also handles disaster recovery, because all of these snapshots are stored in S3, which is a highly redundant, multi-region replicated piece. So once they hit that, it gets replicated a lot of different places, and if we lose a region or availability zone, we still have access to that. So you kind of have built-in DR right away, instantaneously, without any additional things. Another piece of this is the way this works. When a snapshot happens, the snapshot takes an image of the whole drive. So let's say it's a 500 gig drive. The next one is just the delta, and the next one is just the delta, and the next one is just the delta. So we don't have to have EBS, expensive disk space. We don't have to keep more than one full copy, and then delta changes over time. We had a client who was with someone who was paying about $1,100 a month to back up their it was about a terabyte of data and container data. That's costing them about $36 now. That's the difference in the way that you approach it. It's all about, there's 50 ways to do everything, right? It's how you do it that matters. This just comes from experience and, knowing that this is a problem that we try to solve. So let me explain to you what happens now with this. I can't go through the whole demo, but if I were to select one of these, and you as a client can go and you can select one of these, this is what happens behind the scenes. We make a request for that snapshot that was made at that time. We ask AWS to turn it into a volume. That volume is dynamically attached to the instance that it came from. It is then using our secure SSL certificate that we give to you for free to make an SFTP connection to go get that stuff. So we mount it to the instance. We then dynamically spin up a share, if you will, a virtual directory that says, hey, connect to our instance via SFTP. When you do, then you can transfer those files back and forth. You can pull them down. If you want to do a large transfer to replace a whole set of files, you can let us know, and we can literally drag that thing back over. We can replace, a good size 500 gigabyte database in just a few seconds if we need to, but just a copy from over there. So it's sort of like, what's the general case? I might want to just pull up something and pull a file from here. Most of the time I find myself, it's about recovering somebody's mistake. They deleted a set of records or whatever. I can pull the whole data down and do that. So it gives us some ability to get away from some of the cost and expense managing that. It also gives us the ability to limit our exposure to disaster recovery. Fair enough? Another demonstration? All right, so let's take a look at another component here. This is what I get at when I think about integration as a whole. Let me get out of this full screen here. All right, hide that, go back to there. Okay, so this is a relatively simple explanation, but I want to point out what's going on. So first piece is, we have a client in Pennsylvania called Pennsylvania Certified Organic. They certify organic growers all across the country. One of the things that they do is collect a large amount, and I am talking about a stupid amount of paperwork to certify a grower. Literally, one grower may have to fill out, I'm not kidding, like 600 pages if you combine all of the things to get certified to grow. Obviously, they have to keep track of this stuff for a long time. They came to us after a few years of this thing running, and they're like, we're coming up on a terabyte of data here of all this container data. Well, we can continue to put it on a regular EBS volume, or we can start doing some stuff and interacting with their instance in Soliant.cloud and start leveraging some of these other services like S3. So here's an example of what we might do. So let's just find something here for, I've got a Soliant dev. So I got Soliant Farms here. So the issue here is I've got a review year of 2019. The business case looks like this. At the end of a year, I want to take all of this crazy amount of container data that you have that are in PDFs, maybe they're in images, maybe they're movies, they're stuff. They look kind of a little bit like this kind of a thing. Well, not like that, like that. So I want to take that and I want to archive it off. I want to remove it from the data model, reduce the size of the file, archive it off for long-term storage, move it to S3. S3 offers us multiple tiers of storing. I won't go into the details, but basically it's expensive to less expensive to less expensive to really, really ridiculously inexpensive, but very, very hard to get to, all right? So we would choose basically what we wanted. So let's take a look at that. If I pop over to here, we can take a look at this bucket. I apologize, terrible with my mouse. So I've got a bucket here called Soliant Test. Inside of that bucket, I've got a couple of folders. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, all right, hey client, you wanna take advantage of S3? Let's do some quick integration. And without plugins, without having to deal with setting up an entire AWS infrastructure, without having to worry about the networking, the security roles and groups, and exposing it via FTP or whatever, all this minutia, I literally can just set up a bucket, give my client an ID and say, use this code and write your data to here. And this is what happens. So in this case, I have client number 0436. I don't think I have a folder for it. I'm going to simply say, I would like to archive this particular thing to S3. So I will do that. Going to ask me to do that. I'm going to talk to those APIs and I'm going to archive that. I remove it from the database and I shove it up into S3. If I refresh this now, you will see that it's probably created a whole structure here. 0436, I think there's the 2019, sorry, there's 2019, there's the file that's in there. So if I want to list what that might look like, I'll just refresh what I've got. It updates the bucket list, and now I see that that file's in there. So, you know, taking for example, maybe I want to just take and archive all of these. So let's archive all of those. So I'm going to let this run. It's going to list through those things. This could happen in batch. This could happen in real time as someone stores it. You could say, hey, just take all my container data and put it over there. So I keep the file size of FileMaker small. I reduce my cost of being in the cloud. Everybody always has that, well, what's it going to cost me to move to the cloud? Is it going to be this expensive thing? I don't know what my controls are. And I'll be honest with you, in the very beginning, I felt very much the same way. It's like, how do I know what this is going to be? Now we've got 3 years under our belt and doing this type of a thing, you can really control those costs. If you know what you're doing, you can keep it really low. So we'll let these things spin up there, let those processes run, and when they're all done, I'm going over a terrible Wi-Fi connection here, but when they're all done, what I'm going to be able to do then is store them there, but keep a reference to them inside of FileMaker. That's just nothing more than a pointer to that. And when that's done, I may want to restore them. I may want to go get one of them from Restorage. I may want to share them with someone. And this is one of the features that's a little bit of a nuance, but I love this. So imagine, if you will, that I wanted to have this secure, encrypted, back-ended storage of all of this media and all of these binaries. But every once in a while, somebody comes to me and says, hey, can you send me that file we did on, you know, Soliant Farms back in 2015? That was their OSP crops file. With this, I can produce what are known as a pre-signed certificate. I can expose this now. So I'll just say 30 minutes, and I'll say generate a pre-signed URL. If I take this now, and I go to a browser, and I'll just pull up this one, and I send this to someone, I now have downloaded that document. So three things to notice there. Number one, that's not exposed via an FTP site or an HTTP site. It's exposed in S3. I'm generating a pre-signed URL that I can send to anyone or any group of people that can include one or more multiple files that will expose it for a limited amount of time that they can only get to if they have that link. It's a great way to share without having to worry about all the, let me create credentials for this and give you access to that. It's just a pre-signed URL. The second piece of it is, did you notice how fast that was? I clicked it in and boom, instantaneously. I don't have to go through the FileMaker data layer all the way to get it out of the container, stream it over to that, create a stream session, push it through the Tomcat engine, and then stream it to your browser. I'm just reaching out and I'm grabbing that. So keeps costs down, allows you to integrate directly in with it. This kind of thing isn't available through a SaaS model because they all work in conjunction. You can make them work if you do a bunch of plugging in and this and creating pieces to connect together. This just makes it much, much simpler to do that. I'm sorry, repeat for me? Can you explain the folder as well? Oh, the folder. So the folder structure, his question is, can you explain the folder? Oh, could you expose the folder? I think you can expose only the files that are within that. But what you could do, if you wanted to expose, what you're really asking is, I think what you're asking is, can I expose all of the contents that are within there? What I would say that if you want to do it is you'd issue a command to compress all those up, create a single zip, expose that, and give it, that way it's a single download rather than all of it in there. It's an object-based data store as opposed to like a file system data store, so you kind of have to think a little bit really different with it, but that's where we come in. We deal with it all the time. Did you see that, Mike? He asked me a question I didn't know the answer to, and I figured it out. It's impressive. All right, I want to show you one last thing here. So here's another example of having the power of the entire environment available to you. I am literally freewheeling on this one, so if it doesn't work, I'll just tell you what you're supposed to see. So this is something called AppStream. So what AppStream is, anybody familiar with terminal services? Okay, everybody knows why, if you use why the primary. The idea is to produce better performance, to use a client-server app so that I can connect to those things. Imagine this scenario here, if you had a database server, we'll just call it Claris FileMaker, sitting over here, and you created a terminal server app in your environment. You wanted to make it so that your users out in the internet could work with it faster. Well, if I connect to here to run my terminal app, and then I connect all the way across the internet to this database sitting in this SaaS model over here, to come back over here to this thing so that I can deliver this back out to you, do you see how that architecture might not work very well? Terminals, this app sits inside of the region and the VPC and the environment that your FileMaker database is inside of. So if I want to run that terminal app, I can run it right through a browser. So this is a demo that we had created for a client of ours. I'm just going to let it run and pull it up. I've put it in this mode intentionally to talk about it for a couple minutes while this spins up. These are on-demand services, so I don't have to guess that I might need 5 users or 500 user sessions. Each time that I fire up a session, it will allocate out a specific machine and give it its processor. So this user, call him Joe, logs in and says, I need a machine to run my FileMaker app. Build me one real quick. Give me 2 processors, give me 4 gigs of memory, or give me 1 processor and give me 1 gig of memory. And if you're okay to wait about a minute and 15 seconds to a couple minutes for that thing to spin up, you're only charged for that machine and the entire fleet only while that instance is running, by the hour. Well, by the minute, in all honesty. So you don't have to build a whole Citrix farm and have all of that load balancing set up. This is the whole thing in a box. And the inconvenience of it is I might have to wait a little bit for each of those sessions, but once they're up and they're running, they're running. You can also do what's not just on demand. You can fire up and say, you know what, give me 10 available all the time. You pay a little bit more for that sort of thing. But I will tell you, I mean, my past life was a Citrix engineer before even FileMaker days. The cost of doing this is astronomically less. And the experience is I get a full feature FileMaker, not a WebDirect, but a FileMaker app. I've made fun of them for their apps, so don't pay attention to that. Let's just close and open up another one. Just to give you some idea of what we're dealing with here, I'm gonna just kick this into full screen and let that resize for a second. And let me just open up something from another host. Show host about Soliant-FMS dev-02.Soliant.cloud. I don't know, let's pull up, well, let's pull up that thing that we have been looking at. So here's we were looking at, well, let's not do that, let's do this one. We're looking at that one. Look familiar? We were just looking at it in sort of a real client server, but I want you to get the idea here that you really are dealing with, it's a full featured client. And the beauty in these is we can customize these to deliver an individual app. We can deliver to a whole experience to talk to a whole set of those in the servers. We can tie this into Active Directory because it's enveloped in your environment. We can hook in S3. We can hook up at RDBMS. We can make it talk to a SQL server. We can do all of those things because it's on that platform as a service. So it's really just a full-featured client sitting there running. You get all the features of that. I can transfer files between the things. So, my point here isn't to try to give you some, oh, you should be using AppStream, or you should be using S3, you should be using this service in AWS. My point for you to walk away with this is there are a number of hosting options out there. FileMaker Cloud is one of them. There's some other vendors out there that do a wonderful job with the hosting that they do. We are specifically targeted at providing a real enterprise experience here. Active Directory, hooking into your network, letting you leverage the services within AWS at simple integrations, not these complex connect the dots all over the place sort of thing. We allow you to customize the way we deploy your applications. We'll let you take advantage of any of those services that are available in AWS and outbound. And we can configure the security, we can protect the security, and we can wrap it around the rules that are specific to your environment, to your companies, to your configurations, to your regions, in all of these different possibilities. Think of it as a model of what FileMaker Cloud is with a whole lot of options on the back end to give you just a variety of ways to deploy, to connect, to secure, and give you it at a very, very inexpensive price. It really is AWS pricing. As a matter of fact, it's probably just a little bit less than what you could do it for if you did it on your own, because we have such scale now that we're able to get economies of scale. We pass those directly through to you. We do the charge ups just for the management fees and those things in there. Our goal is to help you be successful, help you integrate in with whatever you want for today's stuff, what comes in the future, we're aligned with it, and give you a really nice enterprise platform to launch from. If you're successful with or without our help in getting the application up and running and connecting, we hope that you'll look for us for development services and help you extend services in AWS. And all of those arms are available to you. The last thing to keep in mind is we know this environment. We know it very, very well. We've built it, we've managed it, we build it for different environments. Whatever you come to us with, we're going to be able to help you and get over those hurdles of this is how you should approach this. Don't do it this way, do it this way, and we'll be able to move through that much, much quicker, saving you a lot of time and energy on the development and cost of it. So that's all I got. I'll hang out as long as you want, but thanks for your time today, and hope you guys have enjoyed DEF CON.